one. Hello, Amy Leverton. Nice to see ya.
Hi, how are you, Lauren? How's it going?
Life, it's going. For those who don't know Amy, you are the author of Denim Dudes and Denim Dudettes. You are a trend forecaster, a journalist, writer.
Mm-hmm.
What else am I missing
I
anything?
originally graduated in design.
Owner of a cat.
So originally I was, owner of a cat called Dude. Go do it again.
I did.
He's like, yeah, I'm out. Bye-bye. A designer. I started my career as a designer. So I do design, not as much as I used to, but it's there. That's about it. Owner of cat, lover of cheese.
Lover of cheese. I'm glad to know that. But that's about it. It's like, that's about it. It's like, that's a lot of things, man. Like,
I guess.
World specialist of denim things. But yeah, basically I wanted
Someone said though, sorry to interrupt, someone on a panel, last week said about, people who are kind of like, creating trends. And it's really funny because I was like, that's me. And it was really funny. I loved how he put it. You're a high-end Pinterest board maker. He wasn't referring to me. Like, he was just like referring to people like who kind of, jump on culture and...
Yeah, tell us about trend forecasting, because it's kind of like a behind the scenes kind of industry, and like not many people know what it is, what the whole industry entails. Like, yeah, it's like You started when I knew you, you were at WGSN, which is a big trend forecasting company. Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, so the way it started and the way I saw it at the beginning, and it's changed a lot, the industry's changed a lot. At the very beginning, it was kind of like coming from design. As a designer, the part of my job that I used to love was the eureka moments, the like mood board gathering, right? The image gathering, and the like, ooh, I can do it about like suffragettes and blah, 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 whatever it is, those eureka moments where you're kind of really inspired by something. And obviously through my design world life, I would get inspired by books or by, like art exhibitions or whatever. And so the way I saw it when I first started is it was kind of like we would be creating the mood boards based on a lot of people in a company all loving to do the same thing and all being good at doing the same thing. We'd get together and go, what is happening? And then you'd almost just create mood boards for designers to get inspired by. And it would be kind of like, yes, get inspired by this, but also, by the way, hours and hours of discussions have gone into it, reading of, articles, discussing culture, et cetera, et cetera. So there was this sort of like higher end thing going on, but essentially you're inspiring a designer to get excited by the season, thinking about silhouette, thinking about detail, color, wash, all of that stuff, obviously for denim. And so that was essentially how it started. And it is still that. Totally is that high-end Pinterest board making, really. It is. Totally is that.
Ouch.
Yeah, I know, but I like it. I kind of like it because it is just like, kind of. I mean, and it's very essential. It's putting images together that tell a story, that look beautiful on a page, but that happen to have a lot of thinking behind them. Like, that's what's funny. It's like per season, my God, we read so many articles. We look at all the new collections out there, the new, young designers, emerging designers, street style, how people are wearing and styling their jeans, all over, obviously, Instagram, like constantly, save image, save image. So there's a huge amount of that goes on. And then 5 images make it on that board, but there's like all this thinking that goes behind it. So essentially it is just about creating a really, really great narrative and a really great mood and story. But I would say how trend forecasting has like changed over the last 10 years and evolved is, say, if I think about what I do for a big client, Levi's, right? We talk about a lot of stuff that's got seemingly nothing to do with denim. So, I rarely talk. I mean, we do drill it down into silhouette and wash a little bit for sure, but mostly it's kind of more high, maybe as low as we would get would be kind of like emerging designers and cool stuff. Most of the time it's just like, obviously right now, what is going to happen with the world, like
highly
travel.
Conceptual and like envisioning what behavior, like what culture will behave, how culture will behave, and like what people's mindsets are right now. And
exactly.
I mean like fashion is like a mirror of whatever's happening in culture right now as well.
Exactly. Right? That's it. Yeah. So you're kind of just, you're looking at how TikTok is taking the world by storm. It's funny because I remember putting them in a trend presentation like a couple of seasons ago, and then last season mentioned them again, and then obviously now it's just like TikTok's fucking everywhere. I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here.
You are, but you can do whatever you want.
Fucking everywhere.
Dance naked.
Excellent. Oh, great. I'll end with that. So yeah, exactly. So obviously COVID. It's funny because I work with Sam a lot, Sam Utaro on Instagram, and he's wonderful. And like when we work together on seasonal stuff, and like the last we put to bed, what would that be? Fall winter 21 in the middle of COVID. I think it was like April. And so, what was funny is everything that we were seeing already happening. COVID didn't really change anything that we had. We'd been talking about sustainability, the destruction of the universe. Yes. We'd been talking about comfort. We've been talking about athleisure and stuff like that for a long time. What else?
I feel like
values.
It was like COVID was a catalyst of what was already like inevitably going to happen, especially even like with the way the fashion industry works. Like I feel like with the trade show model of like fashion brands showing their collections at trade shows and then like, selling them. Like, I mean, before COVID, everything's moving online anyway. So there were people who just like, there were parts of the industry that just didn't want to change. And then when this happened, like the cracks in the pavement, they were like, shit.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But no, you're exactly right. It's just everything was going in that direction, and it's not like anything we were saying for the season didn't make sense anymore. It all made sense. It just was like that times a million. Like that's, it just, like you say, exaggerated everything. Like everywhere that culture was going.
The outdoor trend. I mean, I hate to call it a trend because it's like just about going outside.
I know, right? Nature, she's trending.
Oh gosh,
but
nature. Yeah. But that's totally. Like people have like I guess when you have to lock yourself inside and you don't get to see people and you don't get to go outside, you kind of appreciate everything you miss. You didn't realize you always had. So yeah, for sure.
And I think we were so distracted by so many things. Like I would feel, okay, so I'm in an airport somewhere in the world and I'm going back home, and I'd look around me and I'm just like, everything is white and shiny and plastic and fluorescent lights and no daylight. And we're getting on a plane that's flying us through the air. Like, how far from what we were meant to be, crawling out of the sea. How far have we come? Like what? And I remember having those moments of just feeling like so disjointed. And I think, there was this element of like, because maybe I'm inquisitive and trend forecaster, I was really like noticing how awful it was and how unaligned it was. But a lot of people didn't care or didn't think like that and are quite happy getting on planes and buying plastic things and all of that stuff. So it kind of, in a way, I feel like we've come so far from what we were intended for, and we've become so distracted by,
let me ask
TV,
you this.
media, whatever. Mm-hmm.
What were we intended for? Like I would argue on that. Yeah, I would argue question. On that. like, okay, yeah, we've come so far from like single-celled organisms crawling out of the ocean.
We have.
But like, isn't all of man's developments part of nature itself? Because we are nature itself. We are like evolving humans. It's like survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Like, and like, damn, like if you look at the human existence on this planet, like we've come a long way from like dying at the age of like 20 to like being able to live to 100 in like such comforts, and like we're speaking to each other from like halfway around the world.
I know.
What?
Clever us. We are freaking clever. I know. I mean, yes, I think it's a really interesting experiment to see how far an animal, I guess, we're animals, I feel like it's an incredible experience to see how far we can actually take things with opposable thumbs and consciousness. But I think what we've got wrong as a species is getting disconnected with what's right, and I guess that's just greed, at the end of the day, it's just greed and capitalism.
So you're talking about like corporation and how the governments kind of become more and more corrupt by lobbyists and big corporations like destroying our rainforests and like making big
exactly
fires
and
everywhere.
Like we both work in the apparel industry, and like we all know there's amazing designers out there such as yourself, like Story, people like that, who are really doing things in a small scale way. They know who's making their garments, that they're making a small amount, they're making a small dent, but the rest. But you see, it's very interesting because like what I do for a living and what I love doing, about I would say a good 10-12 years ago I had this like, oh shit, because what I happen to be quite good at and what I love, like I feel like I found my perfect job. But my perfect job was essentially telling people next, new, and it's really tricky. And I really struggled with that for a while because I was in something that I loved. And there's so many other elements to my job that I feel okay about, like championing young brands or shining a light on different people in the industry and all that wonderful stuff. But, especially when I was working for a big agency, when we would just be like putting mood boards up, upon mood board out, and it's just like new thing. Yeah. Now I feel like at least the work that I do, say if I can go into a big brand, like, I've done reports on sustainability, of course, but like, on plus size, on inclusivity, on, there's a lot of things that we can work on that would hopefully make those brands better brands, more sustainable brands, more ethical brands, more honest brands. So there was a part of me that just thought, well, if I stay in this, I think I can do more good than if I just didn't do a thing. But it is tricky. It's something that I'm still not completely at peace with.
Yeah, because when you work with such a big brand, like a big corporation, like there's only so much you can, like you have a say in. I mean,
100%. Yeah. And everything moves so slowly.
Really? Yeah, right.
Yeah, decisions are so slow. And I mean, it's funny. There are some things, I mean, I can't talk about certain things because they're clients, but there are some things that some brands are doing or working on where they are really, a brand of that size can make a big difference. That's the other thing that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've just during COVID, I've been doing a project with a big company who are actually pretty sustainably minded, but don't want to talk about it because they are so worried. So many brands are so worried about saying anything because they're like, okay, we're doing this. And then someone's just going to be like, yeah, but you're not doing all of that. And I think what's great as far as the way that the cooler brands are communicating with their customers these days, which I'm hoping to see more of, is this real, true transparency where, like the brand Noah, I mean, I'm always banging on about this. I think they did this campaign like 2 or 3 seasons ago, but I loved it where it's like, we're not a sustainable company.
Yeah.
And, it's a great, photo of like, it's terrible, like huge pile of trash and rubbish, and it just looked horrendous, and there was a guy picking through rubbish, something like that anyway, and smog and like the worst. And I honestly think that that's the way to communicate with a consumer these days. It's just like, we all freaking know the facts now. We all know how it is. And we all know that by making certain choices, there are consequences. So I think for brands to kind of like really acknowledge that is definitely the smarter way to go. And so, going back to, we're obviously not that large a brand, but these smaller brands are the ones that we talk about. Yeah. They're the ones that we talk about that influence the bigger brands. And there are, some brands are more open than others. Some brands have bigger budgets than others, et cetera, et cetera. But, I've had quite a lot of good feelings when I come out of, working with corporations, that I'm like, oh my God, they did this, or they're working on this because of what we've talked about. And it will make a big difference because of their volumes. I think that's the other thing. It's like, I had this comment. I went to, I could talk forever, couldn't I? I'm terrible.
You talk. I've asked you to come on here. Yeah. Go for it.
I went to a mill in Brazil, and it's a huge mill. It might be the biggest denim mill in the world, bar one. We're not sure. And, someone commented like, because basically 25% of what they do is recycled, which I thought was really pretty high considering they're a big mass mill. And, I've done many tours of many denim mills before, and there are some that are better than others. Honestly, I was pretty damn impressed with this mill, and I won't go into all of the details, but they're really pushing the boat as far as sustainability is concerned, considering they're so big. And, someone was just like, well, it's all just got to stop. I agree. We don't need that much more denim in the world. We don't need to be making that much. But the fact is, there is demand for it. And I would rather, if we're going to be making, if that mill exists and that fabric is still being made and sold, if that's our reality, then 25%, and then let's work to 50%, and then let's work to, because they can actually have an impact. Whereas a tiny brand are doing the right thing, 100%. I want to buy from my friends. I want to buy small. I want to buy local. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people in the world who haven't got that kind of budget. Yeah. And they're going to go to Walmart or Target. Now, if a Walmart or a Target make a big change, imagine like a water saving, like that will have huge impact. So I don't know, there's so many different ways of cutting it and so many different ways of looking at it. I just decided, let's stay in it and try and be as good as possible.
It boils down to market power. If you think about it, it boils down to like people's choices. And like, it's such a bummer that like things like, I feel like for small brands, like cost is so high because of like the state of manufacturing right now, and like the rise of fast fashion really pushed the cost of like making things beautifully a lot higher. And so it is like product from small brand is often like inaccessible to regular people, and I completely understand that. But like for sure, I don't think the answer is just to stop making stuff altogether. That's like ridiculous. I mean, it will be wonderful, but we can't that's something that we can't stop. We can't stop this. That is just like that's like trying to stop the world from spinning. That's like a far left.
It's an idealist. And I would love that, but there's no point. I mean, we can work towards an idea of that, and we can at least make steps to educate people, because I do think people tend to these days, of course, compared to like my parents in the 50s, where they would have one shirt rather than 17 from Primark. Sorry, Primark. But at the same time, the problem is we're in this now, and yes, we can help to educate, and yes, we can help to cut that back, and we can do all of that at the same time. But let's also work on what's being made right now, because that is like trying to stop the world from turning. And when and like you say, when it's capitalism and corporations, we can only do so much. You can't. Stop that. I wish we could.
But speaking of which, a pandemic can stop that. In a way, like
Yay! Enter coronavirus.
But yeah, like it's been crazy to watch the coronavirus like just spread so crazily in the US, and like the kind of like havoc it's really caused in the US. But I want to know, like, you know, in the industry, what do you see? What does the world look like from your perspective? Who do you see succeeding, getting through this? Who do you see, what models do you see not, you know, just
not working,
like the dinosaur, just dying like the dinosaur?
Exactly. So, I mean, I think we've already seen a few falling, and around the time that a lot of companies were being hauled over the coals for not paying factories in Pakistan, Bangladesh, places like that.
That was massive.
It was the one thing that really annoyed me is I was just like, look, you're going under. Just accept it. Just go down. You know, and, you know, without mentioning any brand names, because I can't remember. I feel like Marks and Spencer's was on that list at that point. And they're they're one of these brands that, you know, growing up in England, it's one of those weird brands where you kind of like, it's a bit mumsy. You wouldn't buy the clothes, but the food is really good and there's memories attached to it and all of this stuff. And it's like so British.
The chocolate coated toffees were my favorite.
Were they? Everyone's got a memory and a you know, I don't know. It's just, you know, for instance, if I do go back to the UK, because I'm thinking I might go soon, you know, I cannot wait to get into the food aisle of M&S. I just can't wait and just eat all the sandwiches. But basically, as far as their apparel is concerned and all of that stuff, I'm guessing, I mean, I'm really speculating here, but I'm sure the numbers are not good. And I'm sure this has been happening for a long time. And it's just like, you know what, you're great at food, accept it. And the problem is with capitalism is that that's not okay. And I've had some conversations. What I think is depressing about COVID, I've had quite polarizing conversations. All of the brands and the people that I really respect, that I really love, everyone's like, well, it's really made me think I'm going to do better. And I'm like, you were doing well already. And they're going to do better and be better and go slower. And then there are other people I've spoken to, maybe say like factory owners or what have you, who are just like, can't wait to get back to a new normal, like not a new normal, a normal, like get back to what it was before and like rescale and redo it. And it's just like, so as going back to the M&S thing, I mean, I don't know what their situation is, but I just felt like if you're in the position where you can't pay, you know, it's like with me, you know, if I can't pay my rent, I'm going to have to downscale, and that'll be hard because I'm in the studio apartment, but you know, go home to my family, live somewhere, you know, you have to, if the life is telling you can't do it anymore, you can't fucking do it anymore. So it just really upset me that they were like, hey, you know what, us making a profit and making this work is more important than your lives, you know.
All the lives of factory workers on, you know, who are making all the stuff that you're making money off. Basically it's just, I mean, it is awful. It's terrible. So back to your point of who's going to succeed. I mean, I think those people with those more archaic business models, you know, also, I do think product that is going to sell well now. And I've talked to a few brand owners, and weirdly and amazingly, and I'm happy about this, is the more special, crazy stuff seems to be selling more. And I think if I think about my purchasing habits, I bought very little. But what I have bought, you know, it's been such a well-considered purchase, and it's been something that I adore. Sorry, there's a plane going on over. I don't know if you can hear it. Your earphones pretty good.
I was doing the job. But, you know, I think the helicopters actually distracted me. What was I saying?
You're buying the like more, you know, special pieces.
Yeah. So I've heard that like creativity might come to the fore again, because I feel like for so long companies have been so like buyer-led and numbers and figures-led, and that ain't going to work anymore. Well, now it's not going to work. It might work in the future, but it's not going to work right now. We're in this really crazy time where it's very hard to predict. So people want to be inspired, and they want to they want stuff that sparks joy, or, you know, that really like hits home, or means something to them. Values. I think, you know, this is another thing. Yes. Yeah. Depth, meaning, purpose, values. This is something, again, that we talked about in Forecast before all of this, that, you know, if you think about Gen Z, they are so value driven. You know, they are all about, does this company align with my values? You know, like you'd pick your friendship group, you know, it's like, and it's because now we do have that, you know, dialogue with brands. We do have a dialogue, a direct dialogue with our brands. We think, I mean, of course, it is still just a marketing person probably, you know, putting the Instagram post up or what have you. But, you know, during COVID, I mean, I don't want to big up Levi's because I'm sure there's a lot of things they do wrong, but they handled some things really, really well. They did, from a marketing perspective, really kind of, they created a sense of community. You know, there's this guy who he has a dance studio down the road called Ryan Heffington, and he's amazing. He's like a friend of a friend. He's an amazing, flamboyant, incredible dancer. He's a choreographer, worked with like all of the best. He does loads of really big stuff, but he also has this little studio. And during COVID, he just went online and just started doing these dance parties, he called them. And it was cute. At like 12 o'clock in the middle of the day. And they were a workout. Like there were certain moves, but it was mostly dance moves, dance-based moves. Always an amazing soundtrack. There'd be a moment halfway through where you'd get props, you'd get like scarves, you'd get like, or you'd be like, get your microphone out and you'd sing along. And then at the end, oh my God, it's funny, like just thinking about it, because this was like very early COVID. Me and my friends would do this and we would all get on to like House Party or Zoom and we would do it together. So we would have like our phones up, we were watching Ryan, and then we would see our friends. And at the end, he kind of said, what is it? We will get through this. We will get through this. And you just like, you're bawling your eyes out because you've been like working out for an hour, you've been sweating, you've been laughing, you've been having the time of your life. And then like someone just says it's going to be okay, and you just like burst into tears, and we're all like at the end going, oh, sorry. but that's the shit that works. Like that's the shit that works. Because like bringing people together.
Yeah, it's like
we're all stuck, and you can cut through it. Like technology can be stifling sometimes, but you can cut through it, and you can have those emotional connections. So the brands that do that are value driven, and that talk about it, and also don't bullshit, because I think these days, you know, I feel like 10, 15, 20 years ago, a brand like, say, Diesel could be like, hey, we're the coolest. You have to buy this. We're telling you what to buy. We're telling you that we're cool. And people now the consumer dictates that.
Yeah. No. People are just not stupid. And if you assume they are, that's like the worst.
Then you're stupid.
Yeah, you're stupid.
You're stupid.
You're stupid.
You're stupid.
But like speaking of the dance story, like my sister, she has her own she has two little dance studios in Sydney, and she's like a superwoman pole dancer. And during the lockdown,
you've shown me her stuff, or I've seen it through your stuff.
Yeah, shout out to Coco.
She's amazing.
But anyway, when the lockdown happened, like she wasn't allowed to run her business, so she,
of course,
she like started up these Zoom classes, and like that was kind of like really early days for Zoom, the Zoom kind of method of like but like she killed it, like, and she started like she was selling out, and then she started opening to not just her own students but to like anyone. So it's like just such an incredible, like, you know, things have evolved in the space of like 5 months, literally, which is incredible.
Totally. That's amazing.
Yeah,
people have pivoted.
It's all about community.
And people. It really is, and bringing people together and using technology for positive, you know. And I think, like you say, those old dinosaurs, they're not able to think that fast. They're not able to use the platforms. I mean, if you think about just individuals, you know, I'm really like worried about that, because, you know, you get older and you start going, oh, I can't do that, so I'm not going to. And I'm like, you've got to learn it all. Like, so when something else, I remember when Snapchat came along and I was like, I really can't be bothered with this. But TikTok, I've got really, really into. And someone now, see if I can remember exactly what this guy said, because it really like hit home for me, the difference between Instagram and TikTok. And then obviously, because I'm going to analyze what that means for fucking, I don't know, whatever.
Do it.
But so basically this guy just said, it's a TikTok video, obviously, on TikTok. And he said, you go through your day and you're like, that would make a cool TikTok video. That was a cool TikTok video. That guy falling over, whatever. Because day-to-day life and real people are what make TikTok entertaining, funny, interesting, moving, what have you. And he said, never have I ever, looked out a parking lot and gone, they'd be good on Instagram. Like, because the gram is all about curation and smoke and mirrors.
It used to be.
It used to be like, right? Yeah, totally. Yeah, but that's it.
In a way, like, that's kind of what I see as, like, I'm not gonna link TikTok to fine art, but like that's the purpose of art in the world. And I'm sure there's some incredible like artists doing stuff with TikTok, which I can't wait to see. Yeah, but like that's what the function of art is to like to get normal people to take notice of like the incredibly ordinary, extraordinary things that happen every day. And like that's exactly like that's what I think the function of Instagram used to be, and probably TikTok and Snapchat are now, is like just this like very basic single channel function of just taking notice, like, oh yeah, share, like and like that's to me like beautiful, even though like probably TikTok is like a surveillance instrument of communist China. But anyway, all they'll see is like people dancing with their grandmas, like, hi. Exactly. Just it's all about dance moves, so who cares? I would agree. And I think that, I agree. Like when Instagram first came out, it was pure joy. And I still, on a personal level, I still use it for pure joy and silliness. And then my Denim Dudes account is more like, have you seen this brand? They're great. So that's a little bit more polished, and also a great platform for positivity and all of that stuff. So that's cool. But like TikTok, I think it's that empowerment where everything is going in that direction, right? The empowerment of the individual. The fact is that the individual now holds much more power than the brands. That power switch has happened. We're in it now. The brands are beholden. Good. Let us tell you what we want, and let us make decisions with our wallets. And that, that does apply to social media as well. And that's why it's wonderful to see that, like, okay, on Instagram, there's accounts that are, huge amounts of followers, beautiful, curated, influencer-esque photography, people traveling all over the world, living beautiful lives. And I do, my heart goes out to them. I don't know what they're doing for content right now because it's very hard to travel. But, with TikTok, it's just, it can be like someone's in the kitchen just going blah, and suddenly they've got all of these, thousands of followers, and it's just fantastic to see because, so I don't know, all of that is sort of telling us where things are going. It is the power of the individual is going to continue. It's not a trend. It's a philosophical shift of like, before we had the death of God, and now we have the death of corporation and back to the individual.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
That would be really nice. That would be really cool.
Totally.
It's not getting too dark here, is it?
No, it's very moody. I love it.
I can flip it, can't I?
Oh, pretty.
Look at that. Yeah. It's not like
for folks out there who are just listening, we're looking at a beautiful sunset, LA sunset spotted with palm trees. It looks very Hollywood. How's like, what's living in LA like? Do you like it? You obviously do.
I mean, okay, this bit, honestly, it's so funny. So I have a neighbour, Helen, who lives upstairs, who is British, and I have quite a lot of British friends. I have American friends. I promise I've made friends here. I have integrated. But it is funny because there are differences. There are big cultural differences. And I think especially at a time like now, with Trump at the helm, with basically the world's on fire. California is actually physically on fire.
Australia's going to be on, hopefully not, but the fire season's already starting early again.
Oh my gosh,
Heavy.
I wonder if this is the beginning of the end of the world and we're like, we're here to witness it. I don't know. Morbid. But there are definitely big cultural differences, and there are big differences that I don't like, but there's a lot that I do. I mean, the weather, I know it's like really, really shallow to be like, well, the weather's great, but the weather is amazing. The health and like the positivity, like I feel like in London, New York, really similar cities where you kind of like...
They're fast cities. People have no time.
And struggling is almost like the point.
Yeah.
Which is weird, but it's almost like, I got 3 hours sleep last night. I did this, and then, you know, it's just like, wait, okay. Whereas and like I'm 40 now, so I'm like new. So for me, the incredible nature of America, the diversity of nature of America, like I've barely scratched the surface, and I love the fact that I'm here to see all of that. And I do love that, but politically, it's a crazy time. You know, it is a really, really difficult time. And you know, when George Floyd was murdered, I mean, like that the Saturday afterwards, I went down to like my first American protest. I mean, I'd been to like the Women's March, but that was not the same energy-wise, or for obvious reasons. And it's brutal here. You know, the tension, you know, racial tension, but also just like the police presence, everything is pretty crazy. And there's a lot I really don't like. And there's a lot, I've done so much learning in the last 6 months just to, you know, it's been a baptism of fire in a way. I feel like before I was kind of like, you know me, I'm like happy-go-lucky, positive person of just being like getting on, you know, and just being like, yay, it's sunny. Yeah. And then I really had to like buckle down and actually be like, grow up, Amy. Like, what can we do about this? And like really, you know, face the issues and try and help and try and do something about them, and do a little, you know. I kind of at first just like it was so tangible here. It was
devastating. Yeah.
Really
every
awful.
time I watch so many like clips and stuff of what's going on in the US, and like, you know, like it hurts you from a deep place inside. It really hurts.
Your soul. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And definitely. And I feel like I'm a bit calmer now, but I've gone through waves of that. And I remember like maybe a month, 6 weeks ago thinking, oh, now I hate the term like woken up, but now I'm in touch with it.
You woke, man.
I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Now I'm so woke, man. Now I'm so woke. It hurts. I don't like it. But yeah, basically I was just like, now I'm so connected and I'm really opening my eyes to this. Because when you first move to a country, I remember when Trump got in like 9 months after I moved here. And I remember being obviously super upset, knowing that he was a complete crazy cat and it was going to be a disaster. But I felt like I was still on some kind of vacation. I didn't feel connected to it. And now, like this last sort of few months, I've felt really connected, and it's awful. But you know, the way I've got to think about it is I'm still white, privileged, 40-year-old woman. So I don't even know the half of it. You know, whatever I'm feeling is not what anyone else.
But that's an important part. That's an important start. And like also, but like at the same time, I feel like white guilt is it's not productive, and it's not right either. Cause when you feel,
it doesn't do anything.
When you act from a place of guilt, that's not genuinely acting on something either. So there's that fine balance of just like,
for sure.
just like realizing that these are fellow human beings, and treatment, like, you know, for your neighbor to be treated a different way from yourself is just so devastating. But
devastating and crazy. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna move this because it's a little bit lighter in this corner, because I've got so I'll go over here because I think it will be, hang on, let me just get my chair though. So yes, exactly. And I also think our job, sorry, all of that noise, our job as well, you know, is to use privilege for positive. And like, that's what I've definitely really been trying to do as much as possible. And it, you know, at first it was kind of like, just get out there and go to protest. Because honestly, it was just, I feel like the feeling here was so tangible. We were crying every day. It was just like, horrendous. And then gradually, as things calmed down, it was like, right, what can we do to help our little silos, industry, our community, or what have you? So, you know, like I still go actually every Wednesday. There's a couple of amazing speakers in LA. And it's awful. I'm like smiling and then I'm like, actually, no, it's awful. Basically what they do every Wednesday is they stand outside the Royal Courts of Justice, and there's a woman called Jackie Lacey who is she's like the chief of police down here, and it's a protest to get her out because she is sort of just allowed all of these people of color to like die, due to police brutality, being shot and being killed all over the place. I think it's something like, it's not as many as one a day, but it's something like, it's something like 600 in the last 3 years or something like that. So it's roughly about 200 a year, 220 a year. Yeah, die in LA.
That's crazy. That's just like, that blows my mind. Yeah.
Mind blown. And it's just so crazy that it's been accepted up until now. It hasn't really been accepted, but I think collectively, like that protest, it's every Wednesday, I think 3:00, has been going on for 3 years. Particular day, that movement, everything has been going for 3 years. And I just didn't even know. And so it got folded into all of the protests. And now obviously it's carrying on. And what they do is they have families of people who have been shot to death by Los Angeles police come down on a podium every day and tell their stories, every Wednesday and tell their stories. And of course, you've got 600 to choose from, so it's endless. And then there's a couple of individuals who speak who are incredible. And during COVID, I think especially, like, there's certain things that everyone kind of does for their mental health. I've got into cycling, really enjoy that. And I don't go every Wednesday, but if I'm feeling at all sorry for myself, I get myself down there and I come back feeling connected to human beings and suffering, and a collective suffering, inspired by incredible people who are doing incredible things about it, and also bloody lucky,
Yes, yeah.
So it figures me out in so many different ways, and I feel like I'm doing something, but mostly it's just, it realigns you if you're kind of spinning out. Because
there are so many, everyone has a struggle or many struggles. And like when sometimes, like especially with the lockdown, if you are left to your own devices, trapped in your own home with just you to your own crazy thoughts to bounce your thoughts against, like it spirals and you lack perspective that,
totally.
It's the struggle. It's not just my struggle. It's just like, it's the struggle. So I feel like that's one way that, way that technology's helped me in this lockdown, is like being able to like touch the world without touching it, really, like, having these conversations with different people all over. It puts things into perspective. It's like, we all have struggles, like, so your struggle doesn't take priority over anybody else's struggle. We all have shit to deal with.
Definitely. And how have you been? Like, how have you, obviously we all have our moments, but where are you in Bangkok?
This year's been crazy. Yeah, I'm in Bangkok. I came back straight after Paris Fashion Week. The spread of COVID was already starting. Look, like, I'm going to circle back to January. I was here shooting our lookbook in the Golden Triangle, and back in January it was already spreading in China, and we in Thailand were all masked up and hand sanitizing and temperature checking back in January. We were all taking it damn seriously. I did not know that.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So think about that. That puts things into real perspective. Like, we were taking it seriously since January. Then I went to New York for the trade show, like for the Fashion Week and stuff. Like, it was so creepy because no one was even aware of COVID in New York when I went early February. Like, it was like, what? Like, people didn't even know about it. And then I went straight after that, I went to Paris, and like, it was just, it was nonchalant. It was like, you know what it was? It was like, oh, that's the Asian disease. That's their thing. That's the Asian disease.
We fly everywhere. That's the thing. Yeah. It's just like they're humans.
But
we're humans.
The time, like during Paris Fashion Week, it was already like running rampant in Milan, in Italy. So it was just next door.
Oh shit!
Yeah, so it was crazy. Shit. So straight
but
after,
it's funny. I think there's a human. Like I think whenever humans go wrong, it's because of freaking some kind of like ego or better than thing.
It is, man.
Always. Just totally. Like that's humans' downfall is just like ego driven stuff. And so I think, you know, like sometimes that can be like pushing to try and get ahead of people. Sometimes that can be like, screwing other people over or whatever. But like as far as this freaking disease is concerned, and, you know, I think that's what the problem is in America. You know, so many people are just like, there's a selfishness, and there's very positive attributes to Americans, the way that they want success. They want success for everyone and all of this stuff. But there is also a very kind of like this is me, this is my life, and this is what I want to do. And it's just like, there's a collective thinking especially in Asia, you know, like, you know, Japan, China, et cetera, and thinking about the collective and thinking about the whole and past yourself. I mean, in a time like this, that is exactly the mindset we need. That is exactly why we are in this situation.
Exactly. It was quite
and other people are not.
It was quite eye-widening. Like, you know, when I was in France, like, you know, my husband and I, we live in a really small village in the north of France. We're the only we're pretty much one of the only Asians in our little 2,000 population village. And we were taking it seriously. We were wearing masks, going to the supermarket and everything. And people were giving us the dirtiest looks. Like, we were the spreaders. But we were just protecting other people from us and us from other people. It's like a vice versa situation. But mindset is crazy different. So basically, I came back to Thailand when the kind of shit hit the fan, because I was like, I need to like be there for my parents who are aging. I need to be there for my business, for production, blah, 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 all that.
Yeah, it just seemed like the sensible place to be. Yeah.
So I produce in a few different factories, but my factory in Vietnam did have to close down because they service quite a lot of larger brands and they just didn't get paid. Like, they just, Yeah. And like, honestly, I'm a small business. I budget for like being able to pay my factories if there's a pandemic or not.
This is it.
Like, there's no question about that. Like, people's jobs are at stake. So basically hundreds of people lost their jobs in that one factory in Vietnam. Had to move like production back to Thailand. But Thailand did actually, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia, Thailand did exceptionally well during this whole pandemic. Like, I can't really speak for Vietnam because they are a communist. I mean, I can't speak for. Look, we all have corrupt governments, okay? That's a given, but we all know that shit. And so, like, actually the Public Health Authority in Thailand that work kind of separately to the government, they were on it, and people here are they're not stranger to, like, you know, we had SARS and bird flu and MERS and swine flu. So, you know, people take things seriously here because they know the government's corrupt. They know that they're on their own. So people pull together and do their bit for each other. So, we didn't actually have a full lockdown in Thailand at all. We didn't have business. Our businesses didn't stop. We are a really big population, like densely packed population.
Yeah, Bangkok is crazy dense. Yeah, and it didn't happen. It didn't stop.
It didn't happen. Things are still, touch wood. Like, it blows my mind, really. But it's all about cooperation. It's all about putting your ego aside and cooperating, I think. But
exactly. It's not that hard, and it's seemingly impossible for some people out there, and I don't know why.
I think I think that, okay, yes, we all deserve to have freedoms and rights. That's like, I feel like that's the basis of the American, the American ethos
dream
is freedom and rights. Yes, we should be entitled to that. But when there's a global pandemic, I'm sorry, you need to put those like those freedoms and rights aside, because there is like a disease here.
But it's also like, I do think, this whole thing about like freedom and rights to do what we want, and like you can't tell me to wear a mask, and it's like, I mean, like, the little girl in me just gets really upset with people like that, because I'm like, why don't you want to do the right thing? Like, there's this part of me that's like, doesn't understand the concept of putting someone at risk for no reason. It's like, like wearing a mask and then the consequences that, like, I just don't understand that. To me, it's not a question of freedom. It's just a question of decency and like, and having a tiny grain of empathy for your fellow human being, which blows my mind that my freedom comes above that. It's very strange. Like, I'm not being brought up to think that way. I've just been brought up to be kind.
We go back to the idea, just morality, like, is there morality, basically.
So strange. It's really bizarre to me, really bizarre. But hey ho. But yeah, it's crazy here, but it's okay. LA is a little funny pocket. I mean, if you go towards west, there are some people being a little crazy and not wearing masks at all. In our little pocket in East LA, people are kind of policing each other and everyone's pretty strict. But so I feel like when this first happened, I felt safer here than I would ever feel in London, just because the population is less dense, but we'll see. We'll see how it all pans out.
We'll see. Thanks, Amy, for that really awesome chat. Like, it was really insightful and like really valuable to get your kind of perspective on the world, your very unique perspective. I really appreciate it. But for people out there who want to check out what you do, how can they do that?
Well, it's a good point. I'm terrible at my own PR. Denim Dudes and Denim Dudettes, they both have Instagram handles. They are Denim Dudes and Denim Dudettes is easy. And they're both on Instagram. I also have a blog, and I couldn't get denimdudes.com. So I have denimdudes.co, which everyone always thinks is a typo when they're emailing me, and it's caused loads of disasters. So that's great. But yeah, there's the website. I mean, I think if you Google this stuff, it will come up anyway. What other platforms are there? We have a Facebook group. We don't really do anything with that. And then also I did an amazing panel that I'm really proud of and excited about last week. It was about race and segregation in the denim industry, and like some incredible people, Donwan Harrell, April Walker, TJ Walker from Cross Colors, which is awesome. Bunch of other people. I don't want to list everyone, but basically it was talking about like streetwear, and the streetwear scene in the 90s, and how a lot of people, mostly people of color who have worked at brands like that and are trying to move around and maybe going to whiter brands, have huge issues. And it opened this massive can of worms. So we're going to do a series of these talks. And that we just published. It's just the newest blog post on the website at the moment. And it's on I have a YouTube channel as well. Again, Denim Dudes. You can find it on YouTube. And that was a really interesting conversation. And we're going to have a bunch of other ones as well. We're going to talk about heritage and how it's kind of celebrated in our kind of geeky, heritagey denim world. And of course, in America, there's a lot of stuff that is very linked to slavery, segregation, racism that we don't really talk about as well. So there's a bunch of different conversations that we're going to be doing, just because there's a bunch of different incredible, inspirational people in our industry who have incredible stories to tell. So we're going about telling them. So that's it. I mean, through Instagram, you can find all of these things anyway. Cool. Go to Instagram and then you'll find all the links.
Nice one. Well, thanks. Bye, everybody.
everyone. Thanks for having me.